nonetheless, Dr. Ervin Laszlo, who is really a living legend. I would like to introduce him a little bit. He has an absolutely outstanding curriculum and life experience. He's a philosopher and systems scientist, has published more than 101 books, 4 of which this year only, and hundreds of articles. He is the recipient of various honors and awards, including honorary PhDs in several countries and also 2 nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize. He is the founder of the prestigious Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research and the international think tank, the Club of Budapest. Let's give Dr. Ervin Laszlo a very warm welcome.
Hello, Tanya.
Hello.
Thank you for the introduction. I look forward to being with you.
So, thank you very much. So I will give you the stage for you to share about your theme, the Akashic Records, and whatever you feel is within this, where science meets spirituality. Thank you very much.
So, hello, everybody. I wish to address the topic of this conference, of this whole show, the higher self. Whatever else I have in mind, I think is secondary to this. The higher self is the title of this show and this initiative. And I want to say why I think it's important. In fact, why I think it's absolutely crucial today. We are at a critical turning point. It's a historical point. It's a tipping point. We know that the old system that we have created is crisis prone. It's producing one crisis after another. It's produced the virus crisis. It has produced the immigration crisis, the conflicts, the wars, and now the weather and the heating up of the atmosphere, the climate crisis. All of these things are coming about seemingly almost at the same time. They are not accidental. We have produced a system that removed ourselves from a healthy path, probably hundreds of years ago. The modern age, with its trust on technology and making technology serve immediate and selfish ends, has removed ourselves from the path which is the path of all life, the path of cooperation, the path of integration, of joining together. And yes, let me say that right away, the path of love, unconditional love for all things, for ourselves as part of the world and for the world as part of us. This detour of humanity could be a dangerous one. It could lead to progressive worsening of situations, could lead to a serious cutback, dieback of the population of humanity on the planet. But what is wrong and what can we do about it? We have created a path in which we come first, I come first, me, mine, and I. All of these are just the main parameters, and never mind the rest. We thought of ourselves as being above nature. We thought of each of us as somehow being outside of the whole rhythm of nature, of life on Earth. We are putting ourselves as an independent species and people above, beyond the ken of what is going on in the world, in this universe, which dates back 13.8 billion years to the Big Bang, this biosphere, which dates back maybe 20 million years in its present form, and its humanity, which in its form is perhaps 20, 25, 30,000 years with its consciousness, willing consciousness that we now have. This is a tremendously ongoing, delicate, and complex and highly integrated system. We have entered on it, created arbitrary divisions, separations, destroy the balances, and now we are feeling the after effects. But what can we do about it? Yes, what we can do about it is to address our higher self. Our higher self is the deeper level of our consciousness, of our psyche. When we enter into ourselves, when we know that the EEG, the electroencephalograph waves, if you are measured on our brain, would go below the alpha level to the theta and the delta levels. And when we are entering these deep states, then we are addressing what we truly are. Then we feel ourselves again above and beyond the surface separations. We feel our oneness, our connection with each other. Our higher self is the key to coming back to a natural state, to a condition of health in the individual and in the system in which the individual lives. We have thought that if we just take care of the interests of the individual, of ourselves, and perhaps our enterprise, perhaps our state or nation, and then everything will be all right. We thought that if we can just champion the part of this tremendously interactive web of life, then the whole web somehow will take care of itself. Economists have been telling us, don't worry, if you're addressing the interest of a small minority, because the markets will eventually straighten things out. There's an invisible hand that Adam Smith talked about, and it will all put things right. But we now see that it does not taking place. For things to be operating and the free market, the market really has to be free, really has to be even ground for all. I don't want to enter into economics now, but the fact is that we cannot trust this old philosophy, this old paradigm of I take care of me, myself, and never mind the rest, and of mine, whatever I think belongs to me. Everything belongs to me because I belong to everything. Our higher self tells us what we truly are, a part of a balanced, interactive, fantastically harmonious and well-organized system. We have entered into this and destroyed its integrity. Not hopelessly destroyed it, but damaged it. And that's why we have seen this health crisis coming about. That's why we see all the problem of the migrants, of the wars and conflicts, and that's why we see the heating up of the atmosphere. That's why we see now violent weather patterns that we never had before, at least in recorded history. That's why we are living in an unstable and unsustainable system. Okay, what do we do? The recipe is very simple. Address again your higher self. Reconnect with your higher self. Your higher self is your deep psyche, is your consciousness at the deepest level of the great aesthetic experience, of the great religious experience, the spiritual experience, the meditative experience, even the near-death experience. And if you know there are records of experiences, even follow physical death, also of the after-death experience. Our deep self is our higher self. This is not accidental that it's in us, because it's in everything. It's a very simple consideration. Then I won't be very long. I just want to add this because it's an important consideration. This universe was believed to be, even a few decades ago, most of the mainstream schools or universities, colleges is still being proclaimed, that this universe is the result of a large series of interactions that are essentially random, undirected. They just happen. One thing happens after another, and in this long sequence of things, eventually life emerges and the coherent ecologies emerge, planets and solar systems emerge, and the world that we perceive today emerges out of a series of random interactions. This is false. This is not possible. In the time that was available, which is very large time, 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang, that's the time that was available since what we now recognize is the beginning of this evolutionary process in the universe. Probably the beginning of the universe itself, because there was no space and no time before, not in this cosmos. There could have been other universes, but not here. So, and it's everything that happened in this time period. Now, in this finite time period, the level of complexity, the level of coherence that we have today could not have emerged by random interactions. There must have been something that influenced this randomness, that biased this random interplay, and made chance not a secondary phenomenon, not a primary one. Everything is not just serendipity. There is something more. Now, physicists and biologists up to recently were very worried about admitting anything higher, anything deeper, because it seems as we bring back teleology, that we enter into religion, into dogma, instead of pursuing our inquiry into the world as it is. But there is something in the universe. The universe was born with the laws that it now exhibits. This is the understanding that we have if we trace back the processes to the beginning of this cosmic evolutionary process. The laws themselves were present, and the laws are such that they together act in such a way that they create integral systems, not heaps, not mere aggregates, not just one thing added to another, and all together creating a giant mass of sameness. No, what is being created is always a system. A system is an integral ensemble of its elements. It integrates its elements. A system has complexity. It has diversity, but it also has unity. An atom is already a system. A molecule is a higher level system. A macromolecule much higher. And a cell a very high level. And organisms built on cells and by cells are still super coherent systems, complex and integral. Life is that, an integral system evolving on this planet, and probably on other planets, wherever physical conditions permit life. Now it seems organic molecules are present almost everywhere in the universe, that life is likely to evolve. So what is that? What made the difference? Something which was a higher will, a higher order, a higher direction, a deeper dimension, which in quantum physics is called the implicate order. And what we live in is the explicate order. This implicate order, which is the Akashic Field, which is what Plato talked about, where he talked about the domain of the soul, of life, of ideas. This has been known for a long time. The Hindu seers 3,500 years ago talked about a deeper dimension in the world, the Akasha dimension. And this Akasha dimension has all the other dimensions, air, water, earth, and fire. They all are included in this deeper dimension. Everything emerges out of that. So the womb of the universe is not indifferent. It enters into everything. And this womb gives rise to integral systems that work together, where the parts are joined together, where the parts feel each other, where they are coherent, where one thing responds to another thing, and all things together maintain the system. Life would not be possible without this. And life is not a chance phenomenon. Chance doesn't answer the query, how come we have this universe? Fred Hoyle, the great mathematical physicist, said the idea that a DNA, through random mutations, would produce a living organism has a probability which is similar to the probability that a hurricane blowing through a scrapyard will assemble a working airplane. Yes, a hurricane blowing through a scrapyard, given almost infinite time, could do almost anything. The same as a blind monkey playing with the keys of a typewriter will write out all the works of Shakespeare if given enough time. But the time limit that is given to us, the finite time, was not enough for just infinite time to produce the universe in which we live. There is something in this universe which is non-random. I call it an attractor. This is what in system sciences we call a dynamism that's built into the system, an attractor. And I call it more specifically the holotropic attractor. Holos, a tropism toward wholeness. Tropism is an attraction, is a tendency. We see that in life everywhere. And this same holotropic attractor is present in our psyche, in our consciousness. Actually, it's there in every quantum of every cell in our brain, in our body. This holotropism is our true nature. And our higher self has this holotropism, has this tendency toward oneness, toward integration. When we express it, and I'm getting close to the end now, I'll be happy to respond to some questions if you like. When we are truly acting as a natural being, acting out our true self, acting in accordance with our higher self, then we are loving beings. Then we are beings that cohere with one another. When we join together to build higher and higher levels of organization, of systems on this world. The web of life is built by this system, by this holotropism, and we are part of it. We are part of a tremendous symphony on Earth, a symphony that leads to higher and higher levels of integration, of complexity, and is bound together, is bound by a force that in science we can describe as a tropism, as the act of the, or as a result of the act of the laws of nature. But as we can, in an everyday parlance, in our experience, we can describe as the sense, as the feeling of unconditional love for each other, for the world, for the universe. That is a higher self. And if you are going to confront the challenge of building a better world, I can't get into this now, but we do have a chance now to build a better world because the old world has been destabilized. And that's the payoff of a crisis that we live in. But if we are going to build a better world, we have to return to this source, to this deeper self or higher self. Thank you for your attention. This is how much I want to share with you to begin with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laszlo. People are putting comments and saying how much they love you and how clear you are when you share all of this wisdom. And we actually have a question here. Sandra Deacon is asking, can we change the past and the future through the Akashic records?
We don't change anything by reading the record, except ourselves. What we can do is we can align with what there is instead of disregarding it. The Akashic records are the holotropic attractor. They are our deeper or higher self. We don't change the world, but we change ourselves in the world. And because we are part of the world, through us, the world will change. See, we are not separate. We are the world. The world is us, is in us. The Akashic record explains this, displays this, exhibits this. So entering the Akashic record is entering to a deeper understanding of the nature of the world and the deeper possibility of aligning ourselves with this deep understanding of the love, of the coherence that is dominant in the world.
Okay, so basically realizing that we are whole.
That's it, and exactly, we are whole. The universe does not build separate entities, separate unconnected parts. It builds whole systems. We are whole systems.
Mm-hmm. Would you share a little bit more about systems science? You've shared in your presentation already, but within this context of wholeness, could you share a little bit more?
Well, I mean, system science is just a discipline of studying complexity. It's also known as the complexity science. And complexity is never uncoordinated. That would be chaos. Complexity is coherent. Einstein said that the coherence of the world is perhaps the most amazing feature of it. It's amazing that the world should be coherent so that we can understand some elements of it. So not everything that could possibly happen happens at the same time or happens one after another. What happens is part of a scheme, of a coherence that is given at the deepest level in this sub-quantum field, the Akashic Field, also known as the United Quantum Field. Also, various names have been given to it as a unified, grand unified field, it has been also been called. It's what underlies the phenomena. When we go deep down beyond the phenomena, we find a field, and that field has its own logic. And that's the mother, that's the womb from which we are stemming. And that's what we have to reconnect. By finding a higher self, we're finding our way back to who we are and how this world could be built in such a way that it's not breaking down in conflict, but is joining together to build a better world where people can exist, when people can strive, when all things can become what they were meant to become in this universe. The potentials are there. It's up to us to seize the opportunity and get to realize these potentials.
Yes. Therefore, there's no use worrying about complexity because that is the symphony that our higher self already knows. So we don't need to concern ourselves with the complexity. The complexity is just wholeness happening. There's no need to know everything about it.
You know, Tanya, complexity is not complication.
Yes.
Complication is something that we don't understand. Complication
Yes.
is chaos, you see. Complexity means understanding the logic, the higher sense, the meaning behind things, the meaning of a process. I'm convinced, and I've been writing a little book about this, which will be published in October, on the search for meaning, on the quest for understanding, and how this gives us a meaning, a purpose for your life. So I think complexity is not being complex, or not being complicated. It means finding what is behind the surface phenomena, finding the root, and that is true coherence. Complexity is coherence.
That brings in a really different element than people usually perceive, that complexity is actually simple and not complicated.
Yes, indeed. Complexity is to grasp what is truly behind the surface phenomena.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laszlo. People are placing comments and more comments, wonderful and amazing, and all of the different eye-openers that you have shared here that resonate, because we all really tap into the same knowingness when we listen to it from our heart. So thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Laszlo.
The key is in you and in all of us.
Yes. Yes.
If we can contact a higher self, I think we can turn the key in the lock and we can return to a more natural, more thriving world.
Yes, we can. And that's why the Higher Self Expo was created, really, to promote this vision of the key, so that it can be turned and open those doors that are possible for all of us. Yes. Thank you,
Tanya, to you and to all your colleagues in creating this expo. very, very valuable. We have to follow up these ideas that we are hearing here. And then I think we'll see the end of this problem, of this era of crisis. We can find a new natural balance and oneness in the world. That is our chance, and I think we can move toward it. Particularly if we have conversations, we have exchanges like we've just been having. It's a very important element.
Thank you.